Hello, this is about positive value nature. I didn't read this. This is, in other words, this is the night and the day showing us clear value, a nature, in diffusion through temporary value nature. Now you'll see. Three natures of zero. And this is revealed by the ancients, by a nature of sciences that understood how to cause evolution. And they never could imagine that the nations would forget how to be correlation stations for ratiocination, and how that reveals, and how that is using a radical of correlation with and as the value of space nature. Not completely discernible, but only through real science that doesn't lead with opinions in every science. And we'll see how this is motivated. And we'll see how, if this was an organized crime, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a criminal. But we're going to see the predicate value. We're going to learn what English is an identity that the sciences share. And so in other words, right, beyond math, as the value right through all finite body of value and overall, and beyond that, then overall, with the finite even of and as the overall. Just three natures, not just overall nature. Because there's a correlation nature, because the integrity of the identity, and we're going to learn, like for example, identity. You can't teach the science. You have to obfuscate the sciences, and you have to defend an abridged fact treatment nature. And as a roles, as a nature, as a criminal insidiousness nature, blaming on other things. And this was and is to standing exploitations of fact treatment natures in relationship to how they were trained, conceived, to treat facts formally, as a nature having to keep it off the records, like with the Trade Center, and with the spy dens, and the differences between. There's not one nation that's not being played. Russia and America are both being tortured at the same time, but by minority, by nature, they are as fake identities. All modern nations. Forcing that on their leaders because everyone's blaming what's causing negative value nature progressions on other things at the same time as being identities by an ulterior from actual only overall shared value nature systems. This is with no criminal persuasions, especially legalized. See how so they attach me and they attach my family. They attach to fake conversations with Saudi Arabia. They in other words, they have pseudo sophistication comparison natures, predators, as our agencies together, and that's being what maintained that originally stayed was through a crime method, through fact treatment natures. That was with the extortion of our founders. All modern nations lost to this. They were forced to play with this, and to hide this fake identity inside. And we have to address. So this is about positive and negative value nature, and this is about an integrity that is in diffusion. What else is a quality of diffusion? Negative progressions and 78 times streamlines now with bombs at its back, right here, and there's subs. So they say, oh, they can hit here. Keep taunting them. Don't. I'm saying, in other words, but don't play like you guys. Any side is real, because there's no place to do it, and that's one of the reasons is why there are movements right in our faces to attack radical Islam, to force those words into our leaders, because they're they're playing math and they're relying upon you only know so much time, mental energy you have with this, with a value nature system, with hundreds of natures forced to share trade agreements and business as usual through undercover with the police with this too, as a nature originally stated, that takes covering up life progressions, but that also is cultivated to roles as abridged fact treatment natures through through natures of things that agencies are confessed and recorded and involved with. Also with doctors who they forge names, pretend they have conversations, break every constitutional law, practically. I mean, all the surface ones, and for databases roles and for evidences crimes, that in relationship to how long they've been covering up live progressions, in relationship to simple fact mistreatments, only because they have a simple hack sophistication yet, a breaching nature, roles and functions as the only realized self-defended fact treatment natures per interscience, expert lean, not lean on rights for anyone, in other words. So we're going to talk about negative and positive value nature, where and how they're both negative value nature, with and without, as they're only their potential to be value, progression to what is the identity of space. For example, you can't teach about health, fact treatment wise. I'm not a doctor. We're going to show how every science has physical delusions in relationship to this too. Expert leans that are part of a defense of that is as a nature, part of a role that is perpetually incapable of allowing what's lying and not letting real science and pretending it is tied to all kinds of juxtaposed natures of organized crime to all areas, categorically engineered as identities needing to defend the same multi-front sabotages to truth, and we have nowhere to report physical. There's no science not one area has had legal nature voice defend represent them originally and stay in many ways, and we're not being allowed to use this with correlation. And I'll study this through time, what motivations they're sharing fake sides, like voting, in other words. Especially when, in other words, the fact treatments they force, the sequence shifts, they're not letting demonstrated. We have areas, adults who were raised with intermilitary form, interbranch form, and medical families, and then undercover with the gangs and overtly gangland with them, and with evidence roles, evidence crimes, database crime roles. They know that they have sick undercover people, and this is in relationship because their Oz in relationship to what sick internations got the presidents scared out of their minds, because it's not something. It's using fake sides that are a bridge, like Mike Pandolf suggested his recorded and confessed roles with bridging internation families with evidence crime roles, and with stacking illusions with area crimes and other natures of database. All kinds tied to a Chinese food restaurant also that they were repeated when I was growing up. Some Delaferos, and then later they said it was tied to a probate court judge that was related to them. I don't know. I only know them through confession. Then they pretend as strangers, and then they pretend they knew me. In other words, they have roles where you don't know the people from your town, and then they get locked into to evidence as crimes, witness fabrication roles, database crime, and this is also with FBI, families, and themselves, and a former standing chairperson on RICO law, also involved with federal criminals who have confessed and recorded roles with like drug dealing and things like that, and with kids. And confessions to me since I was a kid they wouldn't let me they wouldn't follow the rules. Like I even recorded the people selling the drugs because they were tied to they were stacking those people in my classrooms, and then passing cultivating roles of natures and fact treatment natures with all different kinds of people interbranch natures at once, so they all blame things on other. They just slander people. They used worse than hearsay as a weapon, and pretended not. Sequence shifting, just fabricating things. This is why science was never let. So we have to understand there's positive and negative value nature, but the positive value nature is still negative value nature without the third relationship to the radical, which is to our nature, which is either positive to itself or negative to itself. To understand this, you have to understand the identity of value of our identity. In other words, our value that is shared by each of the parts of the sequence nature of our body. A nature. To explain this, you have to explain it as a nature. It's a correlation nature, a fact treatment nature, identity. And it is by space's identity, which is in demonstration to us, but not since semi-ancient times. This just reminds, not correctly. Now everyone was criminally re-engineered as fact treatment natures in relationship to what's holding our fears, not letting interbranch criminal persuasions and criminal intervention persuasions originally and progressed, demonstrated. And this is with the sciences through areas. Cultivation has this nature before there were branches, then the branches as roles as Oz with the colonization. As fake side England, where that was extorted, they were forced to, every modern nation was forced to an identity greater than theirs, or exploiting the other regions in natures as legal natures, as only let realize predatory litigation nature's voice since semi-ancient times. That needing to justify itself, that needing for personal reasons to progress per a method by this, to blame it on other things, to all areas. So they have mental illness things that they make up. In other words, that people are if someone's paranoid says that they pretend people are paranoid for evidence rackets roles with not only fit. In other words, they have a whole standing block of made up of things they use to cover their lie progressions in relationship to our homeland originally and progressed, criminally influenced fact treatment natures, and with and as other nations all fighting all front as the same abridged fact treatment nature fighting to pretend integrity in relationship to what they need wars for, because and that's because how their natures are being maintained, roles to all areas by the same thing. This is what the Quran and what the Old Testament demonstrate, multi-front counters and demonstrations, the same thing that keeps all areas, legal natures too hard, but needing to. Otherwise, it's going to be worse, because they re-engineered human fact treatment nature by criminally engineering each of the sciences. This is why they sabotage. Someone gets emotional when they say religion or science. Without religion, we would have lost the education even worse. This is what the Quran helped save multi-front. That's what forced the Renaissance remembering with internation sciences had helped the tribes and nations of the world reveal. There's only the Trinity, not just the Trinity, but its relationship with one part of the Trinity as the radical that demonstrates the cause of positive value nature progressions or of negative value nature progressions. Positive value nature progressions, evolution. That's why they attack that term. That's why you have reactions that everyone's there are industries and the branches, all legal natures, enrolls with covering this up with lie progressions tied to databases and jails ones, and with all kinds of people don't realize how they're juxtaposed with military and all that stuff, like different forms, and then they defend that integrity as originally and has progressed breached. CT is cherry tree. That's why one reason why there's proof that that's cipher. So we're going to have to take history and put it into a counterposition. And that's what we're going to do with the New York game. And, with Hartford and with the world. Because we have a shared enemy here. And it's fact treatment nature. So not only do we need Latin rights to be able to do in writing from jail, we need a statute, ooze, where you could, and even if you're in jail, they have to be able to show that they're part of a racket with the streets. See St. Nicholas and look up the word misprision, which they obfuscate this to ratiocination. To understand ratiocination, you have to understand that it is working with identity as the identity of space, which is the only shared value nature system Campus Marcius returns. So there are internation with our homeland ones. They were cultivated in with Italian families. They make everyone make fact mistreatments through internation families like Lebanon, Syrian, with modern languages tied to Dr. Shub and stuff like that. They're like a original state progressed rap mob. See Whites of Eyes. Cipher applies. Our founders had to hide their roles with the Constitutional Convention even after that. That means they had to stay. What was measuring, what would only let built measured fact treatment natures, sabotaging real science, not just as in nature naturally. In other words, our natural reactions are cultivated to be blamed on and needing to be reacting in ways not let proper. So we're demanding that the sequence shifts recorded and all the things I mentioned in here in the media, faked evidences and faked medical information about me as a kid too, and as an adult to be demonstrated and to be taken down too. They were proven and still put up because there's the people that were involved with lie progression cover-ups, with internation families in the area associated with the fire department, not just Russia, Germany, Russia, all kinds of families. Also with Maine, that's reportedly from there's indicators that that's where they put the witness protection program with the FBI recorded with roles with that, criminal persuasions with them through that. Also with other juxtaposed agents and criminal persuasions of kids in my town that are now adults that progressed as standing lie progression cover-up natures, predators against strangers through how investigations themselves are being used for child abuses intercity by the same fake side with psychology. So we're going to examine Hartford, Connecticut, and its roles with slavery originally in the North, and how that was a trap with our founders' original fact treatment nature, extortion, and with the nature of organized crime with means to that, and how with predatory litigation natures where if any of the colonists or any of the early states people or any of the people today try to say anything about them, they hurt them with states means to. Recorded. And then they pretend that's allegations. They pretend that's theory. Because they're not dealing with acts, which are sequence shifts, which show fabrications, which are the proofs. They're not letting acts reported. And because they put sequence shifts, and then they just direct theater with the police forms all juxtaposed with the even the interbranch ones with the internation ones as that nature of police. So they attach me and Saudi people that I know to evidence these crimes, to cover up their roles with trade center crimes. A Leahy family with my area. I never had a conversation with my life. And before that, there's a Gilmore, a Dr. Gilmore. I've never had a conversation with him in my life, but through someone. I tried to report confessions related to medical corruption, related to the roles with the drug dealing with the street, also military corruption, also interstate, also tied to a DeMoro family, also reportedly per them related to a Scalora family, also recorded and confessed involved with evidences crimes, men and women hurting children, with doctors through time, with drug courts tied to probate judges and this Delafiera family, and that made those confession demonstrations roles. And what I handed in for my health class project, after they had already involved some kid with some black kid with some KKK. I never even know the black kid's name. They have them as like a tool with the medical corruption recorded, and with the military. In other words, that's how they cultivate this, by allowing them to have the drugs, and they were knowing that because they're a nature that was originally in state measured laws, fake sophistication, comparison nature, not correlation nature, that requires definition, understanding, identity of values. Identity of value first, because if you can't understand identity of value, and this is what we're going to show the difference between the predicate and the predicate act. The same value, but the same value relationship to itself, but different value relationship to the value to and as the value of nature, that it is only positive or negative to itself. And so we have the bond to matter, that is its value, onto a body that is not ours, but has the value of ours. Just like our poo-poo is not ours, it's negative value nature. But to it, it's in sequence and right, it's positive value nature. Only one way. And see, then we come to how we're in a negative value nature progression that was built to have us to have only sophisticated breaching nature justified to all areas, and leave that, maintain that needed per original state extortion to all, bottom up, top down, and overall, I forced too many hundreds